elation is an aspect of the Wunjo rune, and this is a higher form of joy. If we look at the Latin root, elatus means uplifting. That can exalt and can actually pull us off our feet. And a word related to it, the Greek ecstasy, from the Greek ecstatikos, is something that means unstable. But I like to say, if you want to think of this, think of overjoyed. The joy is so overwhelming that reason and all touch with reality momentarily flies away. Guys, think of when you gave your girlfriend the engagement ring and the reaction. If she reacted loudly and wildly. Most women do. Girls, think of when you found your sister or cousin was having a baby, and the joy, especially at the, what do they call it, baby shower. Yeah. Hen party, that's what it is. But think of the joy everyone had. And you notice that in order for us to be overjoyed for something, there has to be something to ring that bell, push that button. There has to be something to trigger it. They were joking about, I'm a World War II history buff, and they said I'd be overjoyed if someone parked a Sherman tank in the driveway. Of course, my wife was, I wouldn't be too happy about it. But even in jokes, sometimes there's a bit of truth. The things that make us joyful. I know a lot of guys who are rail fans into railroading, and they see a locomotive go by, and you might want, what are those guys so happy and giddy about? They're almost dancing. But it rocks to them, it doesn't rock to you. See? Happiness, the metaphysicians had a term called mental equivalence. And while a lot of their theory of mental equivalence got esoteric and such, the basic idea that something without connecting with something within. And especially with happiness, there has to be this mental equivalent within that to be triggered from something without. A pre-existing thing. Just a theory for you to examine. I also want to talk about the dark side of Wunjo for a minute. And I mentioned this in my writing a few times because it was a close personal friend. I had gotten to know this guy, Rocky. And he was a big, loud, fun guy. You know, pretty normal, although once they found out what Rocky had, the joke was, well, even if he didn't have it, he'd still be nuts. Because Rocky had a big, expansive sense of humor. He was a very happy individual, you know. Whether we were going to a party or a bunch of us going to a concert, although whether we were just coming back from Lyndhurst and stopping to get a few hot dogs from the cart there, you know. He was a really happy guy. And as I got to know him and he confided more of his past, he told me about his problem, which was a bipolar disorder. They used to call it manic depression then. And it was treatable. There was a salt they gave him, lithium, that would balance him out. Apparently there was a lack of it in the brain, and he was perfectly normal. Now, we called it the dilithium crystals because Rocky was also a big Star Trek fan. And you got to wonder sometimes how these things come full circle. But Rocky was telling me one time about how he would go into depression and then to this highly ecstatic, manic, elated state. And he told me something that really set me back. He said that whenever he did anything crazy, because he had done some suicide attempts years ago and some other crazy nonsense, he said it wasn't when he was deeply depressed, it was when he was in the manic phase. And that got me to thinking, because very times when people do insane things, wild abandon, things that are insane, it is that manic phase. And since then I've dealt with people like bipolar is basically a deficiency disorder, but I've had to deal with people who are mentally ill. And I can see how the ecstatic, manic causes trouble with them as well. It's a very strange thing, very subtle, and I don't have all the words to explain it. I'll tell you a little story about Rocky with this ecstatic thing. A few months after he had told me about the depression and the manic phase, he belonged to this club with us. There were like 40 of us involved in it. And he come to the meeting the one night, and he's wearing an Uncle Floyd jacket. It used to be a TV show here in Jersey. with a big carnation. Okay, he's carrying a bouquet of flowers and a card and some little gift in a box. So, Rich, what's up? And he tells us he's going to run for president of the United States. Now, we know this guy for a while, so you're thinking, all right, he's setting us up for a joke. You know, haha, we'll all have a laugh. He goes over to a 19-year-old woman, hands her the bouquet, opens the little box, says, will you be my first lady? Now, this was uncharacteristic for him, and we're all saying, hey, Rich, I think you went a little too far with the joke. But he was giddy and goofy and enthusiastic all night. Just so happens the next day, I'm walking down Summit Avenue, and he rode by. He says, you going to work? He says, yeah, hop in, I'll give you a ride. And he had Billy the Caveman and Crazy Raj in the back. They were a couple of friends of ours. Billy got his name because the guy had like the table manners of a Neanderthal, among other things. So he's got them in the back, I get in front. Well, about the time we get to the Hoboken Viaduct, he turns around to me and he says to me, you know, Thor, I'm God. I says, what? You know what I mean, I'm God. My immediate response was something like that, well, Richie, if you're God, fix the leak in the roof of this car and do something about the muffler, huh? But the two guys in the back seat want to argue theology, why you can't be God, and I'm sitting there saying, wow, ain't this a fine how do you do? Like, if this guy thinks he's God, last night he's trying to be the president, but these two are arguing with him, like they're taking him serious. Man, I can't wait till I get to work. So he drops me off at work. The first thing I do, I call his cousin Gino. I says, Gino, I think we got a problem. I think Richie has to go to have his medication readjusted or something. He says, why? I says, he's been doing wackadoodle things for the last couple of days. He was up the club with the Uncle Floyd jacket just now. So Gino says, wait a second, Thor, when he did these things, was he God or the president? I says, yeah, that's it. He was both. He says, we'll take care of it. And of course, they got him in a hospital, gave him his dilithium crystals and adjusted him, and he was all right. But all through this, he was up and elated. Even in the car, you could feel it coming off him. Waves of exuberance. This guy was like, I thought he was going to do a tap dance on the roof of the car at one point, get out the car. I mean, he was really out there. So when you see it with a friend, it brings home the point. And especially in terms with Wunjo, to have an actual experience with a friend who's been through that, where Wunjo, instead of being safe joy and happiness, is insanity, the brink of insanity, and it can cause real problems. You've seen people in a state of joy who have done dangerous things and got hurt, and this goes beyond that. The lesson for today is the fact that even the happiest of runes can have a stinger to it. Wunjo, joy is a wonderful thing, but if you don't get a handle on it, it can get its hooks into you. You have to be careful when using this in any kind of magical work and spellcraft, because it can be overwhelming. And if you've got someone who's not ready for that level of joy, it can cause some serious problems. So you got to be thoughtful in the use of this rune. It seems safe, and it is, but in some workings, it can tip the apple cart. Consider all the ramifications. I wish you good luck with your lessons. Have a good one. This is Uncle Thor from the Trollwise Press, signing out.